Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the program. Today, I am Trey Balunusa reporting from Abuja.
Good morning. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf, and you're welcome to the Verdict 2023 Verdict.
Yes, indeed, it's a new look and feel. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. It's February 6th, counting down to the elections. Welcome to the program.
Okay, so as you've seen that, Sunrise Daily has now turned into the Verdict 2023. So that is how it will be for a while. So we will be bringing you all the news that you can get concerning the build-up to the elections and more. So you won't lose the regular flavor for Sunrise Daily. You have that and more. So there'll be a lot more focus on what to expect ahead of the 2023 general elections, the big ones here. All the build-ups to it. Remember, the presidential elections, the governorship elections, February and March. You will get those details with us here. So it now will run from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. on a daily basis, weekdays actually. So, but you haven't lost all the platforms to get across to us. As a matter of fact, we're adding more now. So you could still get across to us on your regular social media handles and more, as we did say. So you can still reach us with hashtag 2023 Verdict if you would like to follow the conversation and tweet at us with that one. Well, yes, you could also, if you mention Sunrise Daily now, we know the circumstance, so we will also give that a look in. So the email address equally there, but 2023 Verdict at channelstv.com is also an additional email address that you can get your messages across to us here at the Verdict 2023.
Okay, and I'm just looking at the many handles now, and the fact that we have a longer time, it means that we have absolutely no excuse not to take your mails.
Yeah.
I mean, with an extra hour added, there will be no reason why we cannot take your feedback to us. I mean, the only reason will be if, of course, you're written something there that we cannot use on air, an NTTB. But I want to believe that a lot of our viewers, and I know that a lot of our viewers have given feedback that has been mostly usable, and what has been difficult to manage has been time.
That's right.
But now with a dead time, we know that we'll be able to take your feedback. So keep them pouring in. We've given you additional handles just in case. By all means, do make use of them, and we'll get your concerns heard, especially as regards the 2023 elections, which is coming up on the 25th of February, and also any other issue. I mean, petrol is still a bit scarce in some places.
That's right.
And the currency is still a bit hard to come by. What is your experience? You can let us know using the handles showing on your screen. And if you have any other concern which you'd like to share with us, or which you'd like us to take up, by all means, use the handles showing on your screen.
So go ahead and get your voices heard. But news today, take a look. Unpopular scenarios that will play out today. So just bringing you what to expect in the polity today, February 6, 2023. Well, much as, yes, we're keeping our tabs on this particular matter, the Federal Court of Appeal between themselves, the Academic Staff Union of Universities and the federal government. So we'll keep tabs on that one for you. But Lawan, the President of the Senate, and remember, Machina, that particular case, they will be slugging it out today. Well, the Supreme Court is going to give a decision on that one. I think they will know their fate today. So who will fly the flag for Yobe North Senatorial District? It's been on for a while now.
Well, beyond that, Chamberlain, we do know that it is going to have implications for a long time to come, because there have been questions as to whether candidates can, or aspirants can buy two forms from one political party. If you can be contesting for president at the same time contesting for Senate in the same breath. So this particular Supreme Court judgment will have implications for many more elections. more than deciding who will fly the flag for Yobe East, senatorial district, it's also going to have long-term implications for our elections to come, many more elections to come.
Ayo?
Well, thank you, Chamberlain Almope. If the conversation between us and Mr. Mike again is anything to go by, the constituencies are very clear. There's presidential constituency is 1, senatorial constituency is numerous, governorship constituency is 36, and on and on and on like that. And I think I'm actually waiting for that as well, Malque, to just see how it goes. But, add to that the fact that if you think you could predict what is to come on Sunrise Daily, believe me, this 3-hour stretch is going to surprise you a little bit, so you want to stay glued as much as you can. And hey, you can take us anywhere on your mobile, right? And you can engage with us on any of those platforms that you can watch us from right now on the program. So it's Sunrise Daily now, but it is 2023 verdict. Paula.
Yes, indeed. The case, between the Senate President and the other, what we call him now, a hopeful for Yobe Senatorial North, Mr. Machina, of course, will provide some form of precedent for the coming elections in 2027. But if the legal gymnastics, in similar cases is anything to go by, it will either serve as a deterrent, to politicians to think again before purchasing 2 forms. But then again, politicians are perpetually and incurably optimistic. The verdict, in favor of former governor of Akwa Ibom State is one, that you can cite ahead of that time. So it's politics. It's unpredictable, as always, in the Nigerian space. Ayo.
Well, why it should be unpredictable, that's another matter altogether that one should consider. But then, right now, let us switch back to Abuja and to begin the papers. Chamberlain?
Oh, yeah, but just before you go there, don't forget as well, the presidential candidate of the APC will be campaigning today. So that is also part of the events that will play out today on News Today Bit, where we'll bring you all of those highlights as they are developing today in the politics. So that's why we say you need to keep it locked here. But we're also keeping an eye on what will happen at the Supreme Court. We've got our correspondents there, so we'll be bringing us at least blow-by-blow account of how that will shape the scenarios. So we will be back in just a moment with the dailies here for you. All right, welcome back to The Verdict 2023. You have to get used to that now. So, 7 to 10 a.m., Monday to Friday, here at Channels Television. So we'll go ahead and take you through some of the dailies. Quite a number of scenarios developing, I tell you, as it has to do with these elections. And the thing is, you have to keep your ears to the ground because you will. The permanent voter cards, remember, it's a thing. What's going on with that one? The students, what will happen to them? Will they be allowed to go ahead and vote for this election, depending on what transpires at the federal level, if they're going to announce some holidays or not? So the papers are highlighting different scenarios, but take a look at Leadership. Let's start with Leadership newspaper this morning. They are focusing on 2023 polls. It's this month, by the way, where the presidential election and then the National Assembly elections will go ahead as well. But look at this. Academic session may shut out 3 million students. That is a lot. I mean, you could win elections with
3 million votes.
With 3 million votes? Some states with just less than 300,000 votes you become governor.
Indeed.
And so now, 3 million students. Look at the first of the riders here. It says, we have no arrangement for campus voting. INEC. We're determined to vote holiday or no holiday. Don't disenfranchise them, CSOs warn. Low turnout as PPC's collection closes. So there you go. There's a lot of focus. So by the way, we will have INEC officials here with us on The Verdict 2023 for you. So you could get your concerns, whatever questions, inquiry ready for them because they will be here for you. Well, that is Leadership this morning.
New Telegraph has this. Polls don't impose candidates on followers. Naira urges clergy. Vote credible candidates, not party, he advises Nigerians. Presidency, APC at crossroads as El Rufai dares Villa Cabal. Oh, that's what I'm looking at for you, New Telegraph. Lawyers push for adoption of independent candidacy. Well, we'll be having the president of the NBA here shortly, and perhaps we'll be able to shed a little more light on this. Lawyers push for adoption of independent candidacy. The Constitution review is already over, and I know that that's not one of the things that was there, but who knows? Pages 2, 9, 14, and 16 is where you find details. Look at this. Fuel scarcity. 450.92 million liters of fuel evacuated in 7 days. That's according to the NNPCL. Says 64.42 million liters moved daily between January 28 to February 3. Lagos got 1,251 trucks as the highest, followed by FCT with 847, Ebonyi least with 22 trucks. So it doesn't explain why there is still fuel scarcity. I mean, the queues are still persistent in Lagos and people are still buying this product at exorbitant prices. Perhaps the NNPCL will want to ask its midstream and downstream regulatory department to go around and find out what is going on and why it is that people are still unable to buy petrol, even in places where it has distributed the product. Look at the COT, 7 banks' earnings rise 12.33% to 193.69 billion naira. You might want to look at those banks to know if you have shares there. Maybe you can expect some dividend, or you can ask, is it my money they're using to trade and make profit? Hey, that's what banks are supposed to do. Federal government blocks 56 billion naira illegal payment on board vessels. That is also there. They have a number of stories for you just beneath the nameplate. Appointment. Police Commission approves 3 new DIGs. OK's 1,040 officers promotion. So quite a number more, something to share within the police. But are they still reforming? Big question. Let's leave it there for New Telegraph.
To this Nigeria also to a large extent captures the mood of the nation. It starts with the big story on, the APC-led government. Call Aso Rock cabal to order. Northern elders tell Buhari. Take a look at the riders. Warn over plots to rig presidential election, plunge Nigeria into anarchy. Of course, this follows that explosive interview of ours on Sunrise Daily with the Kaduna governor, following which, the APC governors met with Mr. President to review the implications of the new Naira redesign. And we've also had the Kano State Governor weighing in on that issue, saying that indeed the old Naira notes and the new Naira notes can run concurrently, of course. But what we do not understand is why members of the ruling government, are at seemingly cross purposes on the new Naira notes. One would have, thought that they're all members of the same party and should be queuing behind each other. Perhaps would have, some of them come to, clear the air on this issue. But that's it for the big story on the front page of This Nigeria. You'll also find this one on This Nigeria. Speaking of the new Naira notes, this one is at the bottom strip. Scarce Naira notes. Customers allege banks hoarding, selling cash as security agents uncover bank officials' sharp deals. I'll take that again. As security agents uncover bank officials' sharp deals. Indeed, reports abound, and a lot of you in your mails, I believe, will either confirm or deny that POS operators are charging more than the usual rate, for cash withdrawal. Some say for as high as 25%, 1,000 Naira for 10,000 Naira. And over the weekend, videos surfaced online of bank vaults, containing the new Naira notes, but kept behind the old Naira notes. So Bankers Committee should have questions to answer in that regard to, confirm or deny or debunk reports that banks are hoarding the new Naira notes. Whatever the case, the scarcity must be addressed. And of course, the CBN should in the coming days also address the concern about whether the money released and the new Naira notes released in circulation are adequate to go around, just to address the scarcity. More politics on the front page of This Nigeria this morning. Pandef hits Okowa hard over response to Clark's alleged 250 billion Naira oil deal. Recall earlier in the weekend, the Niger Delta leader, Edwin Clark, had called on the governor of Delta State and vice presidential candidate of the PDP to step down, demanding accountability on 250 billion Naira oil funds belonging to the party. That dust is yet to settle. Speaking of oil, go above, right beside the nameplate on the front page of This Nigeria, 64.42 million liters of fuel evacuated daily, says NNPC. Well, it's still to address the high cost of premium motor spirit or petrol, but it appears as if the product is now available, but it's only going for between 350 Naira and 500 Naira per liter. So the cost happens to be the problem now. Or perhaps it seems as if the ship has sailed over the cost of the new price regime of premium motor spirit. Let's leave it there for This Nigeria and hope that the questions will be answered in the coming days.
Countless questions, most certainly. The Guardian newspaper is next this morning, and what do we have on its front page? It's about money. Your money, maybe. Look at the front page. Fuel, Naira scarcity depletes productivity, worsens inflation. That's the lead of the paper. And who are the people raising these issues? The writers will give you some clues. More workers to sit at home over intolerable fares. That's according to ASCSN. Not producing will lead to food shortage. Retrenchment, says Food Union. Economy has disenfranchised MSMEs. Oh God, my people. We're starving, Nigerians lament. Protest playing into hands of those seeking election shift. NLC president warns. Okay, no, protest playing into hands of those seeking election shift. That's according to the NLC. Government making mockery of monetary system, says NECA. House may reconvene before February 25 elections over cash crunch, says Bajabiamila. Falana activists warn of social unrest. And Afenifere says Buhari's 7-day request to resolve currency crisis is too long. That's right there on the front page, perhaps one of the biggest stories today. Right up under the nameplate, APC divided. Ignore El Rufai's outburst at your peril. Ex-aspirants warn party leadership. That story is on page 3. And right beside that one, 20 million Naira to treat cancer case. 1 million Naira for radiotherapy. What is that about? Gosh, find the details on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper this morning. That's it for the paper.
All right, then take a look at Vanguard newspaper next. Anger, frustration as PVC collection ends. So there you go. If you've not gotten your permanent voter cards for now, I don't know who can help you. Well, because as it is, if it's ended and you don't have it, maybe you need to think about alternative ways.
Yeah, but if they do not have it as a result of no fault of theirs, there have to be questions as to if everybody's voter card was printed. If they kept on going and they were not able to get it, maybe they're told, oh, it's not here, or it has not been printed. I think, as you said, INEC is coming much later in this program, and there'll be questions that they can take with respect to that. Did they receive any complaints? Were all cards printed, etc.?
Now, the thing is, I don't know if the answer can help you get it. That's why I say I don't know. So that is what we'll find out when that time comes here on the show. So you need to keep it locked here. And then new Naira notes, OPS, 6 ways out of supply hiccups. It's been so much back and forth about this one. And then look at some of the riders here this morning. Cash crunch may lead to 25% drop in monthly sales of goods ascribed to man. Nasima commends CBN but says exercise disruptive to economy. Asbon lists effects on small businesses. 100 trillion Naira component of GDP at risk. CPPE, so that's Muda Yusuf CPPE. He's the director there. So those are some of the things that he will be focusing on a lot more if you approach him. But here's also some sort of warning for politicians. Catastrophe awaits rigors. Yakasai warns politicians. So who knows? Of course, you know a thing or two about the methodology, the mindset, but there you go. That is it right there for them. So the Labour Party, Obi to Nigerians, endure Naira redesign. It has whoa. Okay, I'll go again on that one. Obi to Nigerians, endure. Naira redesign has economic, social benefits. Think about it. That's Vanguard this morning.
Daily Trust is the next one there. I reserve my comments on that particular one. But Daily Trust has this, and it's talking about lives and property. Bandits attack. 71 buried in Katsina communities. They have infographics to depict what it is they're talking about.
That's right.
More still missing. 27 women kidnapped. We're left on our own. That's according to locals. Buhari Atiku condemn attack. Page 4 is where you find details. They have total number of people buried, total number of women kidnapped, affected communities in Bakori local government area. They list all of the villages and communities affected by this particular attack. But 71 in one fell swoop is no little number. That's a lot of people in one attack. Take a look at this as well. Badaru appoints Sunusi as new emir of Dutse. No, not Sanusi, Sunusi. So just in case you're wondering, page 5 is where you find details for that one. Reps, for Naira crisis, reps may reconvene before elections. That's according to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila. And if you look at just underneath the nameplate, you find this story, perhaps also linked to him as well. PDP, APC bicker over Tinubu's struggles. Struggles is in parentheses there, for democracy. I do know that the Speaker released some advert video campaigning for the APC presidential candidate, and in it he spoke about his party's candidate struggles for democracy. So perhaps that is what is causing some bickering on page 16 of Daily Trust this morning. Airlines blocked funds, travel agents fret over $500 million revenue, 721,000 job losses. And some very, very disturbing figure, something we all ought to be concerned about. Cancer kills 700,000 Africans every year. That's according to the World Health Organization. What are we going to do about it? Big question. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust newspapers.
To the Nigerian News Direct, and it also has for you many stories that affect you in one way or the other, especially in recent times. Take a look at the big one. Naira scarcity, mob attack fear in banks as sale of Naira notes persist. POS operators charge over 25%. And also talk of the queues, the long queues at ATMs, bank ATMs over the weekend, and the rationing of the Naira that you can withdraw. There's a certain limit in many ATMs as reported over the weekend. In some, you can withdraw only 5,000 Naira. In others, in fact, you're limited to just 2,000 Naira. And you get a number. Some of our colleagues got numbers as long as 58, 57 over the weekend. What's your own experience like? It's back already, Ayo, with the Naira scarcity. Okay, more riders for you from the front page of the Nigerian News Direct on the Naira scarcity story. Entrepreneurs count losses. CBN needs to address scarcity. That's ascribed to CPPE. CBN to meet banks, telcos on POS withdrawal charges. And bank media chiefs debunk hoarding indictment of banks. Just to add a bit to that conversation, there's a lot of talk also about the inadequate numbers of CBN super agents spread across the country to help exchange the old Naira for the new Naira notes.
Why does CBN super agents, as you call them now, why does it sound like some FBI, CIA guys?
They are FBI right now.
Abuja Inquirer has this one on its front page. FCTA slams FHA over mall collapse. What does that mean? The details you will find on the inside pages, but perhaps some inkling. Abuja blames Housing Authority of corruption to charge officials for manslaughter to review ceded mandate. The details of that you'll find on the front page continues on page 3. Well, the new Naira note is not also lost on Abuja. New notes palaver, no respite for Abuja residents. Well, I wonder how my colleagues are there coping right now. But they'll have their say. Right above the nameplate, bandits abduct Abuja chief's wife, son, 6 others. Oh my God. Demand, wait for this, 35 million Naira ransom in new notes. That's the Abuja Inquirer this morning.
All right, so there you go. I think it's interesting times for the FRSC. So the new court martial, it's that promotion. Who doesn't like a promotion? So now that they're all celebrating across the country, our motor is going to be driving happily as well. Not that they've not been, but well done to the FRSC. Well, there you go. That ends a look at some of the dailies here this morning on the verdict, the 2023 verdict. We will be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
This is what they call 21st century. When my customer say I want to use POS, I will just bring out my phone, open the application, use this, press this code. I don't have anyone that using POS anymore.
Of the Nigerian Bar Association headquarters are members of the bar and the bench, some presidential candidates, and a representative of the Chief of Defense Staff. They are here for the maiden edition of a national dialogue on the state of the nation. The focal point of discussion here is on security, the economy and administration of justice, the challenges and solutions. The president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Yakubu Mekiao, leads the conversation by coming hard on legal practitioners.
I must therefore, as one who is privileged to lead the bar at this time, apologize to Nigerians for the abdication of our role. Today, as members of the bar, we are reputed more for how much fees we charge our clients, as opposed to the discharge of our primary call to offer guidance and or offer ourselves for the advancement of the cause of our country.
The Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Mrs. Amina Mohammed, joins virtually to deliver a message from the UN on Nigeria's general elections.
Our common objective is to support a process leading to a credible, inclusive and peaceful election. Voters must demand the candidates demonstrate a willingness to create the necessary conditions for this to happen. And the judiciary must see themselves as ministers of the temple of justice, as agents of peace, upholding democratic values that will strengthen Nigeria's role as a regional and a global leader.
The federal government, on its part, assures the gathering that the outcome of the dialogue, when transmitted to them, will sharpen the plans for the election.
That in the course of the discussion, we will be able to bring out a playbook that would provide the guided processes for the new incoming regime. I would say no one government in this country will be able to solve the problems of Nigeria. But as we did on the precedent laid by successive governments.
And what the NBA is doing today in looking at the state of the nation, security, economy, and administration of justice in readiness for national election is no less an ambition similar to the emergence of her as the first female psychiatrist, because they are bringing it all together.
The NBA plans to document key decisions reached here and pass them on to all presidential candidates, hoping to re-establish its leadership position in the society.
All right, so just to remind you that you can equally get your voices heard, and whatever you think you may have gotten way above your chest, look at the social media handles with which you can get across to us the hashtag 2023 verdict. Yeah, if we'll keep an eye on Sunrise Daily now, because we know it's your traditional handle, so we understand that. And then look at that as well, 2023 verdict at channelstv.com. You can also send your messages there, because we will take them. We're taking a look at all those handles, all for you to get your voices heard on the 2023 verdict. Okay, so don't forget that Sunrise Daily is now the 2023 verdict. It will run from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. weekdays. here at Channels. So do remember that. So I have a lot packed for you on this program in the build-up to the 2023 general election. So all those details, you get them here and more at Channels TV. So as you may have seen, joining us now to discuss the state of the nation, Yakubu Mekel, President of the Nigerian Bar Association. Good morning, sir. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Champion.
Well, we did listen to your piece, and there were, I know you had several response, questions, inquiry about what informed that decision, what happens thereafter. So perhaps you could even tell us, I mean, how did you, because there are several people who will not be on the same page with you, even lawyers, who will say, no, we don't quite buy this. So what must have been going through your mindset, your experiences, before you decided, look, I've had enough. I need to do this and let the country know that we lawyers are culpable, which warranted your apology?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chamberlain, for that question. I think it's important for me to put this in context. And so it's very, very imperative to know where I'm coming from. Number one, I never applied to read law. I never did. I was in 1985, having finished my School of Basic Studies. I read physics, chemistry, biology. I was admitted to read veterinary medicine. I was already a student of veterinary medicine when I met a friend of mine on campus who told me that I'd been admitted to read law. Fast forward, I withdrew my admission from veterinary medicine, still do not know how I was admitted to read law. Out of what perhaps I would term truancy, I decided to go to the Faculty of Law. Today, by the special grace of God, I am not only a lawyer, a senior advocate of Nigeria, and God has propelled me to the position of being the president of the Nigerian Bar Association. So you can see the God factor in all of this. It's not about me. And for God to put in my heart the thoughts and the understanding of who we are as lawyers, and to come to the place where I could offer an apology. So you would know that this is not just about me. It's not about what I think. It's not about what I feel. It's about what God has allowed me to experience. And so, motivated by a bit of understanding of the responsibility of lawyers to the society. And one motivating statement that actually propelled us to the point where we had to come up with the State of the Nation dialogue is a statement made by no less a personality than Sir Christopher Alexander Sapara Williams, who happened to be the first Nigerian to be called to the English bar. And he said, the legal practitioner lives for the direction of his people and for the advancement of the cause of his country. And I read a bit of other pieces where I discovered that there are three professions originally that never asked for fees for what they do. The clergy, the profession of medicine, and the profession of law. They only, as lawyers, wherever they find injury, they are excited to come out and bear out what they know, the expertise that they have, the talents that they have, the resourcefulness that they have in order to address that injury. That is the ideal call. That is the primary call for every lawyer. So the statement by Sapara Williams simply put in context, summed up that responsibility to say that what you do as legal practitioner is to live. To live, number one, for the direction of your people. Number two, for the advancement of the cause of your country. So I dare say that wherever lawyers are not living up to these two responsibilities, then you may be alive, that is living, but you are not adding value and you are dead.
How are your colleagues taking this?
Well, for many of my colleagues, I mean, I've received phone calls. Many have met me. So many of them agree with what I said. And I believe also that many of them are in agreement with the apology that I rendered to Nigerians. And come to look at it, Chamberlain, Nigeria is a country of laws set up by the Constitution. Every other thing that you do within the territory of Nigeria, the structures that have been put in place in Nigeria, how we conduct ourselves, how we shouldn't conduct ourselves, are all a function of law. And it is only the legal practitioners or the members of the legal profession that are privileged, and it's a privilege, to be schooled and trained on the subject of law. And all that everyone is looking for within the entity called Nigeria is what we describe as justice. We are also called ministers in the temple of justice. That is to say, our primary responsibility to the people and to the country is to dispense justice. Now, I found also a statement made by Uthman Anfojo that is very, very profound and deep. And it's apt to refer to that statement because Nigeria is a very religious country. And I'm sure you agree with me on that. He said, a people can exist without religion, but they cannot exist without justice. And here we are, as ministers in the temple of justice. It is our responsibility to dispense justice. So our existence is directly connected with the presence or otherwise of justice. And only we can provide justice. Not out of sheer arrogance, but because of the privilege, like I said, of having been schooled on the subject of law. And it is within the ambit of this law that you deliver justice. What you call justice is understanding what the laws have provided, acting within the remit of the law, within the ambit of the law. If there are disputes between Mr. A and Mr. B, it is what the law says should be the situation that is applied to the facts of that case. And at the end of the day, the product that comes out of that adjudication or resolution of that dispute is what is called justice. And everyone that is involved, including those onlookers, would carry that as binding on them. It becomes a precedence for how you would conduct your life subsequently. And that is all about what lawyers are called to do. And that is why if we are experiencing what we are going through right now, I want to say with all due respect that it is not unconnected with the fact that we have abdicated that responsibility. And let me make this point. Sapara Williams made that statement. How many lawyers today are reputed for treading that path of being a direction to the people and advancing the cause of the country? We are more reputed for how much fees we charge. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to charge fees, but you should be motivated by the need to serve justice on the people. I mean, a laborer is worthy of his wages, but then let money not be the motivation. And that is where we are missing it. Because if we are all motivated by the need to serve justice, and justice is the goal that we are looking at part-time, we will not conduct ourselves unprofessionally, unethically, because it is only when you take your eyes off that ball of justice that you begin to do everything, that you think you must do in order to win your case. And don't forget, Mark, this is a profession that you are entitled to your fees, not necessarily because you have won your case.
No matter how much the fees are.
Well, a lot of what you have said, much as yes, it applies to the legal profession, because even the second stanza of our national anthem talks about a land where justice and peace shall reign. I mean, that's what Nigeria really aspires to. That's what we desire. I think that's what we pray to God for, to be a land where justice and peace shall reign. And if you look at what it is that you've said, quite profound, applies not just to what we're talking about today, 2023 elections, but also to our everyday existence, our existence as a people, our grand norm, the Constitution itself. Is it the law that brings about justice? Is it something that is skewed in favor of a few or skewed in favor of some to the detriment of others? They're big questions, and we see that struggle happening almost every day. It's part of what it is that some of the candidates are also campaigning upon the fact that there needs to be restructuring, etc., etc. But I want to bring it to the 2023 polls. Just before I do, I also want to ask you, what major changes are you asking your colleagues to make? What areas are you hoping will improve as a result of some of the, will I say, the admonitions which you're giving to them, the fact that there's a need for introspection? What areas are you really hoping will improve as a result of what it is that you're saying?
Okay, so we are settled on the fact that the legal professionals are the ones to provide leadership. For every leader to be able to lead, he needs to earn the confidence of those who would follow him. So we require the confidence of the people. And how are we going to earn that? We can only earn that when we conduct ourselves properly. And how do I mean? We have to look at our rules of professional conduct. We have to act in a manner, like I said, propelled by the cause, by the need to serve justice in conducting ourselves, and be ethical about it. That is the only way we can earn the confidence of the public to say that, well, these gentlemen that are called to the position of leadership are giving us leadership because they are concerned about us. So that whatever we do has to do about the people. And once the people get to understand that members of the legal profession are only motivated to serve justice, then we would earn that confidence and we can provide the leadership.
Well, it's interesting you say gentlemen. I also want to believe the ladies as well. So,
yeah, so
I do not know whether it is like journalism where it's a gentleman of the press. But it's like that.
It's because there is this, we say that in the bar, there are no ladies, but we are beginning to have some protests in that regard. I apologize to ladies and gentlemen of the bar, just to strike that middle course between those who believe that the conservative position should remain, that there are no ladies in the bar, but the ladies are having their way to say that, look, they are also ladies, they are not shy about it, and we recognize that they are ladies.
Interesting. So you want to see an improvement in terms of ethical behavior.
Exactly.
As a result of this, is the bar going to be taking on more pro bono cases? Is the NBA saying they're going to be taking on more cases where they hope to advance the cause of justice, which is what it is that you're preaching?
Exactly. So it's one of the primary objectives of the Nigerian Bar Association to render service to the indigent. And I would mention someone who we must emulate in this respect. Chimezie Ikeazo, Chief Chimezie Ikeazo of blessed memory, senior advocate of Nigeria. When he returned from England, he went to court and discovered that some people were not being represented. They were standing trial, they had no representation. And then it came upon him to begin pro bono service. What that gentleman did was what evolved into, because he set up a pro bono legal aid association himself with people like Chief Gani Fayomi, Solomon Dar, Debo Akande, and a host of others, just a few of them. And what were they doing? They pooled resources. Some of them sold their properties to come together to render service to those indigent persons who couldn't have representation. So that is what translated into what we now have as Legal Aid Council. And the Honorable Attorney General, a couple of months back, did us the honor of naming the Legal Aid Council building after Chimezie Ikeazo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. That is something to emulate. The Nigerian Bar Association is very strong on pro bono service. We have a pro bono team in the Nigerian Bar Association. And with the 128 branches that we have across the country, we are really properly positioned to render service. We are doing that carefully and selectively so that we also don't against the background of the need for us to actually be ethical and professional, we are very careful just so that people are not exposed to persons who may not conduct themselves properly because they do not even understand that rendering pro bono service is actually the primary call of lawyers. So yes, we are ready to do that. We are doing it already. We are prepared to up our game in that respect because people must know that that is our primary call. And maybe let me answer a question that you posed earlier about what are we doing? You talked about some constitutional provisions and all, and whether people are getting justice, restructuring, and everything. Now, Maupe, if you are talking about restructuring, I mean, that expression or that phrase simply talks about what the lawyer should do. Because what are you restructuring? You are restructuring the laws. Only the lawyers understand what it means. You can get the political scientists to come and sit down with the lawyers, and they tell you the model that they want. It will be for the lawyers to sit down and come up with the legal framework that will now be either the restructured Nigeria or however you want to call it. So it's the business of lawyers. Now, the issue of justice, there are portions of the Constitution that we discovered that, oh, okay, we cannot interrogate government with respect to the issues of security. We cannot interrogate government with the issue of health. We can't interrogate government with respect to issue of the education, except for the extent to which the National Assembly has made laws in this regard. But what we are saying is that, Maupe, you came to us with your manifesto. And by the way, the manifesto of all the political parties, the Constitution mandates that the manifesto, the Constitution of the parties must contain the provision. There must be a pledge that they would implement the provisions of Chapter 2 of the Constitution. That is that aspect of the Constitution that we describe as non-justiciable. So we are saying that if a subsequent section in the Constitution mandates you to put this provision in your own Constitution, it is the basis upon which you have come to ask for this social contract with the people, to say, vote for me, and we've voted for you. How then can you turn around, because you've been sworn into office, to say that we cannot ask you questions about this social contract we've entered? If you are not giving us health, how then is right to life even meaningful, which I can enforce, when your neglect about my health, your neglect about my security has exposed me to the threat to my life, and I will lose my life because security is not provided, health is not provided, and you are asking me, oh, I can enforce my fundamental right to life, but the things that would guarantee me living, I shouldn't ask questions about that. We are saying no. We would do that. We would interrogate you. And you can understand that only the lawyers can do that.
I find it interesting that you say that restructuring is a business of lawyers. I know that members of the National Assembly might disagree with you. When it comes to that, perhaps they and members of the state houses of assembly who recently undertook another constitutional amendment, unless you're speaking to something different.
No. So I'm not saying that it's the National Assembly is the body that is constitutionally responsible for the business of amending the Constitution. But the understanding of what to be done will be provided by lawyers. The National Assembly sits there. They are advised by lawyers. This is how you go about it. And then they sit down and using all the prerogative or the powers that is given to them in the Constitution to pass the laws. The fact that you are a member of the National Assembly does not make you a lawyer. And it doesn't derogate from the responsibilities of the members of the National Assembly, which we very much recognize.
There's one matter which has come up in recent times, which is the fact that students are asking that they must not be disenfranchised in these elections. I think they're taking the matter to court. Is this something that the NBA is concerned about?
Well, we are concerned about any Nigerian being disenfranchised. We are concerned about it. And if that matter is being taken to court, I, for instance, had cause to write to the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission when members of the Nigerian Bar Association who went round at the PVC collection centers said that there are many who haven't collected their PVCs. Now, I wrote to the chairman, had cause to speak with Mr. Festus Okoye, and without any attempt to take anything from them, they extended that the period for the collection, which that also has expired. But if students, by reason of being in school, eligible students being in school, will be disenfranchised, then I think it's important for the authorities to make provision for them to vote, either by letting them go home so that they can go to their various polling units to vote, but it is a constitutional breach to omit to do what you need to do or do anything overtly that will stop someone from exercising his franchise at the election. So the Nigerian Bar Association is very much interested. We would go. We can't be busybodies until we are invited into the matter. We cannot go and seek to either join, but we will participate in observing the proceedings, and wherever the Nigerian Bar Association is specifically required to do something to further that particular interest, to further that cause, we are also available to render advice to the lawyers that have been chosen by these students to advance their cause in court. And that is what should be done. And it's also a part of the responsibility of the lawyers to provide direction for the people and leave for the advancement of the cause of the country. And perhaps, if I may say, another thing that we are looking at as lawyers, the provision of the Constitution has clearly limited us in the choice of who should aspire to lead us.
How so?
Section 221 of the Constitution says the only way you can contest for any elective office in this country is by becoming a member of a political party. You cannot even contest election until you find a political party, because it is the platform upon which you can contest. That is limiting. We are 220 million Nigerians, maybe 170 million adult population that are qualified to vote. And then another portion of it also, of the Constitution, that is quite limiting, is to say that you have to attain a certain age. If I can vote, why can't I be voted for at 18? But the point I'm making here is that if we say that now we have 18 political parties, so these are the platforms upon which we can express our desire to seek any elective office, that is limiting. And we all know what goes on for anybody to get a ticket on a political party. We are witnesses in this country where a serving governor had to move to another political party to secure a ticket to contest. And that is robbing us of the best of Nigerians who can lead us to get us out of the woods. And we are now left with only what these political parties, flawed as the processes may be, tree up to us from their primaries. What about having independent candidature? So that if the women in this country, who are more in number, decide that Mark is going to be the next president of this country, they can do it, and you don't have to go through the bottlenecks of political parties. They insist that you have to do certain things. You don't have what it takes, 100 million naira to buy a form to contest. How do you get that?
All right, so we'll go to break now, but we will return and get more from you in terms of how this could possibly affect or impact positively on the forthcoming elections. My colleagues in Lagos will have their questions as well. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the verdict, the 2023 verdict. So Sunrise Daily will now be the 2023 verdict, and it will be from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. weekdays here at Channels. Well, we still have with us the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Yakubu Mekiao, just giving his perspective on his State of the Nation address, implications for the polity. As a matter of fact, I mean, perception for a lot of people is reality, and we do know some political office holders, governors, they have a impression of the judiciary, one of which you are not happy about. I know the Kaduna State governor has been speaking about their perception, their impression of the judiciary. What is your impression of that, first of all?
Well, I listened to that, is it interview now or conversation with the Malam El-Rufai. And all the things that he said are really not about his impression. He spoke about his understanding, which is flawed, because number one, he talked about how that he accused the judiciary of taking sides with crooks just because decisions of court went in favor of certain individuals that he considered crooks. He gave example of persons that were indicted by his government for having misappropriated public funds. He called them thieves and that they stole. It wasn't within his remit to do that. He cannot look at anyone and call him a thief or that he stole. For somebody to be called a thief or for any conclusion to be made that he stole, he has to pass through process. He talked about the fact that the only complaint or the only reason why that particular person succeeded in court, the National Industrial Court, was because the person was given verbal query as opposed to a written query. But El-Rufai knows better than that. And like I said earlier, El-Rufai is someone that I like. He's actually my big brother. But on this particular point, he has crossed the line. Why? Because I know El-Rufai knows. Because he was one of those who sat down to put together the 2007 revised public service rules. The provisions of the public service rules must be strictly complied with. The employment of public officers is governed by that law. It's a subsidiary legislation. Whatever that law says you must do, you have to do it the way the law says you should do it. If the law says give him query, and you haven't given him written query, you said verbal query. If you are asked tomorrow, where is the verbal query? What would you say? You don't have the evidence. It will be your word against the word of the person. But you can't skip that and expect your conclusion of that finding to be right. So I say that El-Rufai made this comment. The judiciary, I am not here to justify everything that the judiciary has done, but the judiciary is not the corrupt that everyone or many people think they are. We certainly, just like we do have in the bar, people that misconduct themselves, there are people also on the bench that misconduct themselves. And we say that whenever you have evidence, please let us know. The vigor with which we go all out to protect the judiciary, if we find evidence, we would apply the same effervescence in dealing with whoever it is that you have found to have misconducted yourself. And for El-Rufai, for God's sake, to say that we made a mistake of creating the National Industrial Court under the Constitution. And I said, it's the office of the governor, not the creation of the Constitution. Are we all happy with what the governors have done? Certainly not. Does that mean that we made a mistake in creating the office of the governor under the Constitution? No. So you cannot sit there and expect to do things according to your whims and caprices and expect the court to simply align with it because you are government. That the courts align with crooks other than... The court is not to align with anybody. The court is to sit down, look at the facts as presented before it, and render a decision one way or the other. And I gave the example. I said my big brother was also charged in a matter before the FCT High Court. He was alleged to have abused his office and all whatnot. He was discharged and acquitted. That decision went in his favor. Am I to go use what he has said to say also that the court sided with him because of the use of that language? which is obnoxious. I mean, to align that or to put that side by side with the court. It's wrong for him to have said that. And like I said, we would demand of him to apologize to the judiciary because it's inciting the public against the judiciary.
Did you say you sue him if he doesn't?
No, if he doesn't, I said we will take out a court action against him by the 30th of May this year, which is a Tuesday.
Well, what is the difference? A court action and suing someone, isn't that the same thing?
Yeah. I mean, I just used another expression.
just clarifying. But just quickly before we go to Lagos, you said that someone cannot be declared a thief until the person has gone through certain processes. Yes. This is regardless of whether or not investigation revealed that, you know, things were missing or stolen, maybe under the person's watch.
Investigation is investigation. It is not trial. When you investigate someone, you are only looking at facts. What did he do? Oh, we found this and that. And then you now have to come and subject it to the criteria that is set by law to prove the allegation that you are making, that he stole money, or that he's a thief. Theft is an offense. Stealing is an offense. So these are expressions that are created by law, and the law also sets a standard that you must meet before you can describe someone as having stolen. So investigation remains investigation, and it is not a trial it is not a process of determining the guilt or otherwise of the person.
All right, over now to the Verdict Studios in Lagos.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Well, Mr. Mikel, the judiciary will most certainly play a significant role in the upcoming elections, in the 2023 elections. And you began by taking us through down memory lane how you became, you know, a lawyer. Perhaps it might also be in good stead if you could trace how the judiciary got here. I mean, you apologized for what the judiciary hasn't been doing. That presupposes that there must have been some missteps along the line. Those who know would know that irrespective of what government is in office, the judiciary is always in office. The judiciary is always functioning. The legislature takes a holiday, the executive may change a little bit, but the judiciary is always constant. So at what point would you say the judiciary stopped playing the role for which you are apologizing that it hasn't been playing?
Thank you very much. Maybe a little bit of correction, even though you can also be right. I didn't apologize simply for the judiciary. I apologized for the failures of the members of the legal profession, which also includes those that serve on the bench and those of us that are at the bar. So to that extent, yes, the judiciary is involved. And I believe that there are many things that we ought to have done, like I said, flowing from that statement of Sapara Williams about giving direction to the people and also advancing the cause of the nation. There are many members of the bench that have, in one way or the other, missed the mark, missed the focus, and those ones have been dealt with. The ones that have been identified have been dealt with. It's a continuous process. Those that haven't been found, but there are suspicions that some compromised their positions. Well, we cannot use suspicion as a basis to condemn the judiciary because it's still suspicion. Suspicion, I mean, for all you care, you can suspect that someone is indulging in one form of criminality or the other, but without evidence and without the process of law being followed to find him guilty of having committed that particular offense, you cannot say conclusively. So I can speak for the bar, for instance, because we have instances where certain comments were made by members of the profession, which clearly do not provide direction to the people. Because I tell you, for instance, where you find a senior member of the bar, go out there to say that courts are supermarkets. And you find that same person go to court tomorrow in order to ventilate the grievance of his client. What signal are you sending to the public? Are you giving direction to the public, or you are simply confusing the public? In one breath, you have made a general statement that the courts are supermarkets, only where only the rich shop, and then The next moment we see you go to court. Well, what are you saying? So those are some of the things that have eroded the confidence of the public. Those are some of the things that constitute misconduct. Or you find someone who is involved in maybe snatching of briefs. It is against the rules of our professional conduct. And instead of reprimanding that person or bringing that person to book, we celebrate the person. You are sending wrong signals to the public. Or you find a judge, if there is any judge anywhere that has been found to have misconducted himself, to allow the person to continue to sit on the bench. When that has been proven, then you are sending the wrong signal. Or you find cases where people create a situation where there is suspicion that this is what is going on. And that is why not only must we ensure that justice is done in every particular case, we must also go further to ensure that that justice is seen to have been done. So members of the legal profession, either serving on the bench or on the bar, have a responsibility to convince the public that what we have rendered in any particular situation is justice. Not only that you determine the case, but in the way and manner you conduct yourself. The people should not be left in any doubt that justice has been done. And I agree with you. And I said it in other fora that the legal profession has a critical stake and has a major role to play in this election, because disputes would come. We will be the ones to settle them, either participating as members of the bar or those judges before whom this election petition disputes would come. And my admonition to all of us is to ensure that we are only motivated by the need to serve the people with justice within the ambit of what the laws have provided. We should be sincere in our participation. We should be sincere in our deployment of the laws, the interpretation of the law and the implementation of these laws. We must be sincere in doing those things, because that is the only way that we can attain that justice that we seek to serve the people.
At the end of the day, Mr. Mekiao, it's always going to be about the perception of law. And you know very well that the law is viewed from the perspective of whoever is looking at it at any given time. That is why there are always two sides to the same issue. So going into the elections, and as you have said, disputes are going to arise. Thankfully, it would seem like the days of injunctions and counter-injunctions have come and gone. But what are those things that you perhaps from your experience think, based on the laws and the practice and our history and our trajectory as a nation, electorally speaking, what are those things that are like, I don't know, bottlenecks or whatever it is that we have to, especially the legal profession, has to pay attention to, so we do not have unnecessarily prolonged court cases, especially about the elections?
Yes, I will take you back to what I said earlier. If what we do as members of the legal profession, either on the bench or at the bar, are motivated by the need to serve justice, that is to say, we are not propelled to do the things we do, and I say this for members of the bar, by the fees that we are paid. It is not about the fees that we are paid, but we have the understanding that we have to provide direction to the people and serve the cause of the nation. The cause of this nation is not destruction. And when justice is not served, there is going to be destruction, there is going to be anarchy, there is going to be chaos. That is not the cause of this nation. So whatever it is that would bring this country on the path of destruction, that is what we must stay away from. And the only way to do that successfully is to fix our gaze and to allow the need, the consciousness of us to serve justice pervade our entire being as legal practitioners, understanding that it's a privilege that we have to play this particular role. No other person is called to play this role, and because you are privileged to be in that position, you should be responsible to the people. And the way to remain responsible is to make sure that no other factor motivates you other than the need to serve justice on the people. That is the only way we can succeed. Absent of that, I mean, we all have prejudices. Judges do have prejudices. Lawyers do have prejudices. But you must allow yourself, you must not allow yourself to be controlled by your prejudice. The primary cause of serving justice must always be in your consciousness and must be the reason for which you act in a particular manner. And that is the only way you remain professional and ethical. And that is the way to serve the people. And that's the way, the path to success in our participation in the electoral process, either now or in the future.
Good morning, Mr. Mekiao. You may be right when you earlier said that the business of restructuring is really the job of lawyers, even though, as my colleague Maokwe rightly observed, some members of the National Assembly may, challenge you on that. But even members of the National Assembly say that, they receive some form of training in the business of legislation, preparing bills and all of that. So you find that lawyers are also privileged to be in, to serve in positions of authority, either at the national level or at the subnational level. So in your apology to the nation at that event, do you find that lawyers who have had the opportunity to serve either as members of the National Assembly or the executive are complicit in that which you're apologizing to the nation for, in their failure to provide leadership, hence where we find ourselves now? And then on that very critical constitution review recently carried out by the National Assembly, some would say justice has hardly been served on the people on their vote on local government autonomy. What are your thoughts on these two issues?
Thank you very much. When I made the apology on behalf of all the members of the legal profession. And it doesn't matter where you are serving. You can be in the mosque, you can be the imam of a mosque, you can also be the chaplain or the pastor heading the congregation in a church. You may be in the National Assembly, you can be in the private sector. The point I am making is this. There are about 135,000 lawyers today in this country. It's such a small number compared to the population of Nigerians. But if each and every one of us, or a good number of us, would conduct ourselves wherever we might find ourselves, wherever, whether in the National Assembly, State House of Assembly, either as governor, or wherever you find yourself, we'll conduct ourselves conscious of this, our identity, and our responsibility to the people and the nation. All right. I guarantee you this country would be different.
All right, Mr. Miguel, I mean, several people want the NBA to have this election workshop for judges, who will be presiding over the election tribunals about the election, the 2022 Electoral Act, because they think that some of them are still taking decisions relying on presidency set by the old Electoral Act. And so if that happens, perhaps it will put us all in good stead. So those are some of the suggestions just coming through for the NBA to take on board. But that is a segment for... Oh, dear. Yeah, I know. There's several grounds, I tell you.
Yes, indeed.
But, of course, his gentleman will always have opportunities to bring him back. Yakubu Mekiao, President, Nigerian Bar Association. Thank you for your time and all the best.
Thank you so much, Tamblin. Perhaps this is a good time to say what I told you outside. The cameras and channels haven't been fair to Chamberlain. I didn't know that he's such a handsome man until I met him first in person today. I think there should be an improvement. These cameras have been fair to Maokwe. We've seen her beauty.
Advert for Chamberlain.
So,
thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope the ladies are taking note. It looks better in real life.
We will be back in just a moment. Just still watching the 2023 verdict. Don't go away.
As the President, I have always reiterated my commitment to peaceful, credible, and transparent elections. And what the Peace Committee has been doing over the years, aligns with my belief that Nigeria needs peace in order to achieve credible elections. However, the rise of fake news and misinformation continue to pose a significant threat to democracy in Nigeria. It has shifted focus away from issue-based campaigns to amplifying the potential for personal attacks, insults, and incitement. It has also significantly diminished the civility and decency in public discourse and debate.
Welcome back. You're watching the 2023 verdict, and this coming to you live from Channels Television. Remember, Sunrise Daily now transmutes into that program 7 to 10 a.m. weekdays here at Channels. Well, as you've seen in that welcoming slide, Winston Osuchukwu joins us next. He's a financial executive and the fintech executive. Good morning, Mr. Osuchukwu, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, you have been keeping tabs clearly on the developments across the country, and several scenarios these days playing out. Of course, you have the big picture in mind, which is the presidential election, the National Assembly elections in the first instance. And there are several policies that have been put in place, which many think, if not checked, it could have adverse effects on the forthcoming election. So perhaps you could just start off by giving us your impression of how you think economic considerations or policies can impact these elections.
Again, thank you for having me. Economic policies will form a central part of how people make their decisions on who to vote for in the upcoming election. As we start to see the world in general is going through significant economic turmoil as inflation starts to rise in the West, something that hasn't happened in the last 20, 25 years. That is just going to roll downhill and affect countries in the global South like Nigeria and the rest of them. So as people go to the polls, they will go to the polls with, as they say, pocketbook things in their mind, up on their mind, asking those questions. Which of these people out there has the best plan to ensure that my tomorrow is going to be better than my today?
Okay, Mr. Osuchukwu, I think we might have lost your sound there, but I will just double check and see if either, well, did you mute or unmute? Not sure we can hear you here.
No, I did not.
Oh, okay, fine. Go ahead, please. We lost you momentarily. Go ahead, please. Apologies.
Okay, I was saying at the end of the day, economic factors are always central to elections. People will make their decisions based on which candidate, which party presents a platform that they can credibly see a better tomorrow for themselves than today. So as all the parties jostle for position, I think it's very important that they take the time to, in very plain English, very simple terms, put out what it is that the economic plans are, especially in these times when there's a significant amount of global turmoil happening with inflation rising across the world.
For fintech executives like yourself, what matters would you say are the most important to you?
Interestingly enough, things like the ongoing change in the Naira is something that's important to us. If it has the effect of increasing the amount of people that move from physical to using internet banking and electronic payments, that's great for us. It brings a lot more people into that net, which means a lot more people can transact in a cheaper, safer, and more traceable manner. And if you look at it for the banking sector as a whole, I think most people should also remember this. Banks cannot create loans if they don't have deposits. So if you take 50% of all the cash in the system and you take it outside of the bank, that is 50% more credit that cannot be created by the banks, which would go into growing the economy and helping both large and small businesses grow.
Well, you do know that loans for a while, I mean, people say that you can tell what a man will do by what he's done before. You do know that loans for a while to the private sector has been quite a challenge. The private sector, especially the organized private sector, has always complained about the exorbitant interest charged on loans, making it almost impossible for a lot of them to take advantage of the fact that people deposit money in banks. But looking at our literacy levels and looking at the challenges that we've faced so far with the currency swap or with the currency redesign, if you prefer, would you say that there could be any chance that people could be discouraged from putting their money in the banks?
I don't think so. I think at the end of the day, for most people in the urban areas, putting your money in the bank is something that people already do. Most people already transact using electronic forms. So I don't think it's going to do that. And more importantly, as people start to use more and more banking services and see the added benefits that a lot of both old-time banks and neobanks are offering their customers, I think what you will find is the new depositors or the new entrants into the financial system will see, number one, the benefits by way of safety, efficiency, and the added advantages that they get, be it being able to purchase things as a discount or what have you, that banks offer.
People, would you say that the banks and fintechs are really in tune with what it is that the people want? Yes, we can argue that young people seem to, have dominated the fintech space, and, there are many more entrants coming into it almost on a daily basis, appealing to the young, to the young population. But then there is also another demographic which might be left behind, those who are illiterate, those who might not really understand, and those who say, look, some of the charges which they get, for instance, even to get, say, an alert on the phone that money has been paid or money has been debited, some people would rather not have alerts because they're going to be charged as much as 4 Naira. I don't know whether it is that people, fintechs and even the regulators and even the banks are really in tune with some of the things that the people desire from this transition.
Well, the one thing that I would say is, and this has been a problem for financial inclusion, which is people, especially those at the lower rungs of the economic pyramid, feel like they are paying too much for what they get from the banking system. So I think there are a number of things that the banking system itself can do, allowing people to opt out of certain things. If you don't want to get alerts from when payments are made or monies are received, or to set a threshold, those are the kind of things that I think the banks and fintech can do for their customers to help them get those numbers down. But on the flip side, all the people who are not in the banking system should remember, you cannot benefit from a system that you are not part of. So if you're not in the banking system and you're running a business, that means your business cannot take advantage of any kind of loan system, any kind of system whereby the federal government decides to actually put cash in the hands to do some direct support to the populace, because those will usually be done electronically, given that it's the most efficient way to do things like that. And so at the end of the day, I think we just need to meet each other in the middle. So the banking system needs to give people more options on how to get on how to use the banking system in the most efficient way possible. And on the other side, the people should also spend that time to engage the banks and tell them exactly what it is that they want. And I think at the end of the day, what you'll find is competition will help drive down those costs. And if everybody looks back at what we've seen with the mobile phone era, from the point where you had to pay for SIM cards and you could only buy your phones from the telcos, to today where those things are, where you have an ultimate choice of where you get your phones from, and the SIM cards are almost free. That's the kind of that happens when the market starts to grow and competition ensues.
Well, Mr. Osuchukwu, perhaps it might be a good idea to backtrack to how some of the challenges, economic challenges we are contending with now came to be. I've been hearing about austerity measures or economic upheavals since the Second Republic, and it would seem like the situation's only gotten worse over the years. Policies and politics and everything continue to go, and it will seem like prices of stuff just keep getting higher and higher by the day. Living standards continue to be a concern, and as you said, it is now a global phenomenon. For us as a nation, the biggest black nation in the world, the most populous, what are the peculiar challenges that have been with us for very many years that we have been unable to track? And that if anyone does not do, any presidential candidate or the next level of leaders we're bringing in do not do something about it, we are in for a much worse hand.
Well, I would say this much. To say that what has been wrong we were unable to track would be disingenuous. The problems of the country have always been clear. We are a country that has lived on exporting unprocessed raw materials, and at the end of the day, turning around and importing the processed products and the resultant products from those back into the country. We have not made the necessary investments over time in the infrastructure in productive infrastructure that drives the economy. And when you continue to not invest in the system, you continue to grow a population. That is a recipe to have what you see now, which is you have standards of living that have declined significantly, and you have a currency that has continuously weakened because we're an import dependent country. So what do we have to do to move forward? We have to make the really hard decision. All the political parties are saying it. The fuel subsidy has to go, because if you think about it, oil is fungible. If you take away the fuel subsidies, whereby market prices reign, I see no reason why people that export fuel or people that are in the fuel business would not want to build refineries close to the source and reduce their cost of transportation of the product, where they're transporting higher value products rather than lower value products. So those are the kind of things that we need to do. We need to float the Naira, and when we talk about floating the Naira, here's simply what it means. It means that when an investor is coming into the country, they know exactly what their dollars will purchase at any point in time. Today, if you ask an investor to come into Nigeria, they will ask you a simple question: how much is my Naira worth? Is it worth what the central bank tells me, or is it worth what is actually exchanging for on the street in day-to-day smaller transactions? So we need to make those hard choices. And then finally, the final major choice we need to make is to focus for the near future on moving all our resources to growing the productive economy. And to grow the productive economy, that means we might have to step back from some things that are not generally productive, so to speak. So we should be looking at making sure that there is power and infrastructure to areas that actually support industry. And as you move forward, like anything else, as the industry grows, they employ people, people get wealthier, and as people get wealthier, they will start to demand goods and services that someone will come in to fill the gap. And that's what we have not done. And hopefully we get to do that. And if we don't, we're just going to continue this story until whenever we decide to do it. There's no magic bullet.
It is the expectation, Mr. Osuchukwu. Speaking of backtracking, many I've had quite a lot to say about the new currency redesign, and part of the conversation is, look, this is not the first time that Nigeria has had to redesign its currency. You know, many refer to the change of the 100 Naira to celebrate Nigeria's, centenary anniversary, the transition of the 20 Naira, 10 Naira, 5 Naira notes into polymer prostrates. And it didn't come with this amount of difficulty for the Nigerian people. So what's different this time, between 10 years back when all of that happened and now? Why the difficulty?
I really can't put my finger on it. At the end of the day, it should be a fairly simple process. You have cash, you deposit it into the bank. Now, the central bank setting limits on how much cash you take out, that makes a lot of sense too, because the whole idea was to take cash out of the system and put it into the banking system so that the banking system can deploy that cash and start to grow the economy, which is exactly what we want the central bank to do. So now, the question now we have to ask is it that bad, or are we making it look that bad? There are people standing in lines, you see the riots, you see the chaos. That looks very bad, but fundamentally, should it be? Like I said, from a lot of people I talk to, people do almost everything they do, at least in the cities, electronically. Given that only the largest notes are being changed, if you go to the hinterland, you will see that most of the transactions that they undergo are done with much smaller denominations. And the other thing is, it is critical that we start to bring people into the banking system and move to an electronic system, because it is expensive to manage the sheer volume of notes that we have in the system. That is actually very expensive. So why it's been so difficult, it's one of those things that I cannot put my finger on it. Maybe that the execution has just not been as good as before, but I do think that this is one of those places where people need to take a beat and calm down and realizing the fact that, number one, get your money into the bank as quickly as you can, and then take your money from the bank as you need it. While on the flip side, I think both the banking system and the regulators need to find a lot of other ways to let people know exactly what they're doing and provide them a lot more outlets for them to be able to access it.
And besides that, benefits that you quoted about reining in inflation by, controlling the cash reserve ratio and, all of that. Others also talk about other benefits, the vote buying component, strengthening the lower denominations, but we can't also discountenance what the politicians are saying about this being a wrong time. Is there a wrong time to do the right thing as far as the economy is concerned?
Absolutely not. If the politicians are upset that they don't have cash to go buy votes, well, they should cry to someone else. I don't think the country should be in the business of making it easy for politicians to ply their trade. The only responsibility that anybody in the government has is to ensure that there is an economy for us to go after. Because at the end of the day, the elections are going to happen in 2 days. And after that, we're still going to be living in the same economy. So why wait to take your medicine tomorrow, the medicine you can take today? Your colleague has mentioned, we have been hearing the same thing for the last 40-odd years. And that has been because in the last 40-odd years, we have not taken the hard decisions. So why are we waiting one more day? India did the same thing. And what did that do for India? It caused the same kind of general unrest. The people who had the most resources in cash sitting at their homes complained. But at the end of the day, life went on. India had a much shorter period to get it done. And what happened on the back end of it? Tax collection increased significantly because now most of the transactions were done electronically, which the government could trace and tax. And those tax revenues are what we're going to use to build the country. There's no other place that the money is going to come from.
You think this whole Naira swap stuff is about vote buying?
In all honesty, I don't even think about that part of it. I think removing large denominations from the system in general reduces the amount of corruption that there is in the system. That is clear, because now it's more difficult to do things like that. So just look at the sheer volume of money that you have to carry, because people prefer to do things that are illicit in cash. But that part is of little interest to me. At the end of the day, what is of interest is we're taking a lot of cash that is idle and sitting idly outside of the banking system, putting it into the banking system so that we can generate the credit that are necessary to grow this economy. And at the end of the day, I think a thriving economy benefits every single Nigerian.
Just before we go, can you take a quick peek on this issue of political will in order to deal with these economic challenges confronting us? What do you make of it when you hear that it's the leadership does not have the political will to do the right thing? Do you see that as a big deal, or is just political talk?
In all honesty, this is not a Nigerian problem. Having the political will to make hard decisions is something that we have a deficiency of on the entire planet. If you look around the countries, take your pick. Nobody in the last 20, 25 years has gone out and made those hard decisions, because every politician has only one key performance indicator: to hold power or to get higher office. And for you to do do either one of those things, you have to keep the electorate happy. Well, the problem with making hard choices is it usually requires some sacrifice in the near term for a benefit that comes out in the long term. So if we look at Nigeria, it might be the case of the fuel subsidy and letting the dollar float. If we look at globally, we continue to struggle with things like climate change. We continue to struggle with things like climate change. There are most of the countries that we term as great are suffering from things like crumbling infrastructure and what have you, because they continue to not have people with the political will to do what is necessary. In some cases, whether it be raise taxes or provide adequate support for people who are the lower ends of society. So it is a global thing. And the one thing I've always said is we need leaders, not politicians. And until we find leaders in the system, the planet as a whole is going to continue this slow march to what does not look very nice.
Well, I guess we're going to have to come up with another paraphernalia or criteria to determine the difference between a leader and a politician. But please, it's not something for you to answer now. Winston Osichukwu is a fintech executive. Thank you so much for your time and perspectives today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. 2023 verdict returns after now. Do stay with us.
So now the Supreme Court of Nigeria is set to deliver a judgment in the legal dispute over the All Progressives Congress senatorial ticket for Yobe North. The APC is challenging the nomination of Mr. Bashir Mashina as the party's candidate for Yobe North senatorial district. The party is insisting that Ahmed Lawan, Nigeria's president of the Senate, was the authentic senatorial candidate for Yobe North for the forthcoming general election. Now, at the last hearing of the appeal, the counsel for the party argued that the primary election held on 28th May last year, which produced Mashina, was in breach of the Electoral Act. Mr. Peters contended that one Danjuma Manga, who conducted the said primary election, was not nominated by the NWC of the party. He told the court that the APC cancelled the primary poll on account of the irregularities observed during the exercise. He argued that the other primary held on 9th of June was conducted by the APC's NWC and produced Mr. Lawan as the party's authentic candidate. But Mr. Machina's lawyer prayed the Supreme Court to dismiss the appeal for lacking in merit on one ground that the Senate President did not challenge the suits at both the trial and lower court. He also pointed that Mr. Manga, who conducted the primary election where Mr. Machina emerged, was a member of the NWC-appointed committee to carry out the exercise. The APC had approached the Court of Appeal in Abuja seeking to nullify the judgment of the lower court that declared Mr. Machina as APC's candidate for Yobe North. But the president of the court, Justice Monica Dongo-Manson, led the panel. She held that the appeal was an abuse of court process. So today will be an interesting time. So that is what we will bring you as we progress. All right, so here's what we'll be discussing next.
I believe there is. I believe that there are elements in the villa that want us to lose the elections because they didn't get their way. They had their candidate. Their candidate didn't win the primaries. And I think they are still trying to get us to lose the elections. And they are hiding behind the president's desire to do what he thinks is right. I'll give two examples. This petroleum subsidy, okay, which is costing the country trillions of naira, was something that we all agreed will be removed. In fact, I had a discussion with the president and showed him why it had to go, because how can you have a capital budget of 200 billion for federal roads and then spend 2 trillion on subsidy? This was a conversation I had with the president in 2021 when the subsidy thing started rising. He was convinced. We left. It changed. Everyone in the government agreed. It changed, okay? Secondly, the second example I will give is this currency redesign. You have to understand the president. People are blaming the governor of the central bank for currency redesign. No. You have to go back and look at the president's first outing as president. He did this. Buhari Idiagbo regime changed our currency and did it in secrecy with a view to catching those that are stashing away illicit funds. It's a very good intention, very clean intention. The president's heart is white. Okay? But doing it at this time, within the time allotted, just doesn't make any political, economic, or sense. And for such a program to work, okay, we have to be involved as governors, as subnationals. Because, look, in my state, there are 2 local governments without banks. In Borno State, out of 27 local governments, only 2 have banks. In Yobe State, out of 17 local governments, only 2 have banks. So how do you expect farmers in every part? And remember, Borno State is 4 times the size of the 5 southeast states. So how do you expect everyone to change his currency within the time limit? The people of Nigeria should understand that these are not the policies of the APC. They are not the policies of our candidate. They are the policies of fifth columnists that want to bring us down. They want to bring this country down.
One thing I can assure you is that no matter who, this administration is focused and determined to ensure a free and fair election. And I think this administration and those that matter now, who was the most important person in this administration to me is Mr. President. And I think he has shown by words and by deed that is committed to a free, fair, and credible election. And fair, free, and credible election actually means not favoring anybody or disadvantaging anybody. Now, and everywhere he goes, he makes that very clear. Even as recently as Friday, When he was in Naira, he said the same thing. So if there's anybody who's working against any candidate, we don't know officially.
All right, welcome back. Well, Awan Hassan joins us next we'll talk about that. He is a convener of North-South Progressive Alliance. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
So what is this conspiracy theory within the APC? Is the House divided against itself? Because if that's the case, how can it stand?
It's not House divided. The APC is intact. Just as Madan has said, the people that are doing this are not partisan. They are not APC. They are not our members.
Well, they're just in the presidency?
Yes. It's not D. It's not D. It's just a person. It's just one person. There is this kid called Sabiu Tunde. He's the only one doing all these things. He had his candidate, and the candidate lost primaries. So he's trying to use that opportunity because he's in a villa close to the president. He could manipulate everything or anything he wants to. You know, it's just sad that a boy of that age will be doing all these things without looking at examples of other people that had done the same, and where are they today?
Well, as you know, we can't verify that, so we're
but I'm telling you
on the issues.
But that's why I'm telling you, Chamberlain. That's why I'm telling you.
Well, the thing about
everything that is happening on this Naira note is Sabiu Tunde.
How can that be? Because I mean, there's a process that is the CBN, an institution, there is the presidency, there is INEC, there are party members, there are structures across board, institutions.
Yes.
How can anyone believe that an individual, assuming that were the case, can be over and above all of these institutions?
He has spoken to a lot of people, Chamberlain. He has spoken to a lot of people. He has told people that he's hell-bent on making sure we don't win elections, that Ashwaju doesn't win elections. And you know the CBN governor contested for the same primary. He bought the forms, but he was scared to go to submit himself to a democratic process.
He didn't. Well, from what we saw in that period, I think the CBN governor came out to make a statement when it was rumored that he had, not rumored, well, when it was obvious that some people had bought a form for him. Because what we saw for a lot of the candidates was that people were buying forms for them. We do not know whether they were the ones going through the back and giving people money to buy forms for them. But what we saw as a media organization was that people will say, oh, we bought a form for this person, we want the person to contest. I do remember that the CBN governor came out to say that when he's ready, he would come out to say whether or not he wants to run. But at the moment, he wasn't going to run. I think there was a statement to that effect. So when you say he bought a form, you know, there'll be a big question mark on that.
Maupe, you're not a politician. I'm a politician. And I've seen a lot of cars, more than 500 cars painted with his pictures, going for the primaries. That apart, my problem is, it is not us, the politicians, that are being pained. It is the masses that voted for us that are the target now. These guys are hell-bent on causing chaos. They don't want the elections. They don't want to leave power. They don't want the elections.
So what we're seeing right now is still the fallout of the APC primaries. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They had a candidate and the candidate lost.
So how come there's this insinuation that they're working for the PDP? So it's not they now.
It might be. They are talking with PDP. We've heard that they are going to release the new Naira notes to only PDP banks. Emefiele and
is there any such thing? PDP
oh yes,
banks?
Emefiele and I've told people this. You know,
PDP banks?
Yes, there are banks that are owned by the PDP now, like the Zenith banks and other banks, where PDP has a lot of shares in it. That's the plan. You're printing 300 billion naira and taking out 3 trillion naira.
So, but what is the party hierarchy doing about this to ensure that the party sings from the same hymn sheet?
We are resisting it. We have said it, and that's our position. We're resisting anybody. Anybody that tries to scuttle this election, we will resist him.
But at the moment, it doesn't appear as though it's looking good, because if people can't have fuel, if they can't access their money, I'm sure you've seen lots of fights in different parts of the country.
That is why I say it is deliberate, Chamberlain. You can't give me a time frame that my own asset hard-earned asset will expire in so date.
Deliberate on the part of who? The president?
Deliberate on the part of this boy that is trying to do it.
But we all saw it is the president who says he approved that.
They went to the president and told him it's a good policy, we can get rid of bandits. They have a lot of money with them, we can get rid of them, and this is why he likes it. He likes the idea. This was what they told the president. But when the governors met him and told him how people are suffering, see, let me tell you something, Chamberlain. If not for this, there has never been a time, even as opposition, I've followed President Muhammadu Buhari since 2003. An opposition cannot sponsor anybody to stone President Muhammadu Buhari, then GMB. But it happened in its own state. It happened in Kano. People are saying, Bamai, we don't want a Buhari, a phenomenon in the northern Nigeria. You think that is okay?
I find it interesting. I think for the name that you have mentioned, because you have mentioned that name. First, I think a lot of Nigerians would like to understand who is this person whom you've mentioned.
He's a PA. He's a PA. I think he's a PA in the PA to the president.
Are you saying that above and everybody else, including the chief of staff to the president, including you know, all the other people who advise the president, and
you're calling a hierarchy of administration, but they don't follow it.
Who are in close proximity to the president? Are you saying that this individual has, will I say, more influence than all of these people on the president?
Yes. Yes, I'm saying that. And let me tell you something. Let me clear something. A lot of people out there are saying it's Mamandara. Maupe, Baba Mama has nothing to do with this. In fact, Baba Mama told me that we should go and campaign for Ashwaju. In the build-up to the primaries, these are primaries, I took the vice president. I brokered a meeting between Baba Mama and the vice president, wanting him to support us. But I brokered two meetings. At the second meeting, Baba Mamandora told the vice president that we're going to support Ashwaju. If we're to support anybody from the south, it's Ashwaju, because there's an agreement. And we will not break that trust. Tell me how this same person will now scuttle Ashwaju's elections.
Okay, now I'm thinking, because right now, listening to the governor of Kaduna State, he says that people are blaming the CBN governor, and even within his own party, it would seem that people are still blaming the CBN governor, because only...
I don't really blame him.
Just a moment.
I blame him because he should be a professional.
Only yesterday, we had also on the evening program of the Verdict 2023, we had former governor of Edo State, and who was also a chairman of your party, Adams Oshomole, on this program, who blamed the CBN governor, you know, saying that he could have deceived. Those were the words that he used, the president. Are you sure that there is a clear understanding of what precisely is going on with this particular policy? Because the CBN all by itself came out to tell Nigerians about this policy and the reasons why it had to undertake it. For a number of people, they said the reasons are laudable, but the manner in which it has gone about it is what is causing the difficulty.
That's it. That's what we're saying. The manner and timing of the implementation is evil. You can't tell me you're going to...
What is evil about it?
Because they want to cause chaos in the country. Go to ATMs, Maope. You go around this town, go to ATMs, see how people are fighting. See how people fight to take 5,000 Naira, to pay for cabs, buy fuel in their gen in the house. You think that is not a recipe for chaos? You think that is not evil?
But assuming without conceding that this individual, because we don't denigrate him, we focus on issues and not malign people's integrity or personality. If that were the case, doesn't it then say that the system is indeed really faulty for an individual to wield this amount of power against the entire structure that exists in the country?
It's not as you think, Chamberlain. There is a very huge, humongous influence when someone is close to the powers that be. There are a lot of things that will be taken away from the leader, and there are a lot of things I would like to, that's when I have an interest. There are things that I can present to the leader and give him my points, maybe give him points, because I've read the mind of my leader and I know what he wants, so I'll use that in getting away with what I want. That is what is happening. I've worked somehow, and I know how this thing works.
So now that the governors have met the president and told him how people are suffering, should everything change?
Yes, it should. It has to.
Will it?
Yes, it has to. Chamberlain, it is not feasible. You can't tell me from the 16th of February that my promissory note has expired. My own hard-earned money has expired.
But there's been some compromise on that. I mean, when the meeting that the National Assembly had with the CBN governor, it was clarified that even in the law, the face value of the old Naira note will still be maintained even after the time given for depositing and swaps. The only condition is that it has to be at the office of the CBN this time around. You can't go to a bank and, you know, get your note.
So how many
exchanged.
branches of CBN do we have? 1, 2. How many? Do you know how huge our states are? Like Kano has 44 local governments. How many local governments in Kano has banks? What do you want them to do? There are people living in the outskirts that live their life on farming. They go to markets where there are no ATMs, no banks, to transact with cash and come back home. How do you want them to do that? How do you intend to even take the money to them? Do you know how much they put in banks these days? It's just 2 million naira. In fact, as recent as last week, Chamberlain, I collected old notes from the banks. Last week, Monday. So you're still giving out old ones, and you want to tell us that you're restricting cash?
Are you sure that there isn't, will I say, an internal or some intention to sabotage the policy? Because the CBN was trying to also get more and more people onto, you know, internet banking, or let's say virtual platforms. They want this cashless policy to succeed. It's been on for a while. A lot of people are doing their transactions cashlessly. And they have talked about, you know, getting more people on the platforms is the reason why they have printed very few notes. But even with the notes that they have printed, we've seen that, you know, not a number, it's not going round. A certain number of people have these notes. Yes. I mean, the CBN governor has pointed to the fact that they're being sprayed at parties. These notes do not look like they were gotten from ATMs. Over the weekend, we saw bankers, managers being arrested for hiding new notes behind old notes, or even for stashing the new notes in their ATM, loading them in the ATM without opening them. These are some of the things that we have seen. Are you sure that there isn't a deliberate intention to sabotage the policy and make the CBN look bad?
Who is intending to do that? Commercial banks, just as you said?
You just said that banks are APC.
What I'm saying is it is a very
banks.
good policy. Maope, just understand me.
Yes.
It's a very good policy. We like the policy and we want it implemented. But the implementation is wrong. The timing is wrong. You don't give time frame. In the last 3 months, or when they announced it, actually, when they announced it and said 3 months, did they provide the new currencies in the banks? No. People don't see them. If you had done that when you announced that you were going to close up everything in 3 months, we could have done exchange. But they didn't provide it. They provided these new notes 2 weeks ago. In fact, the CBN governor was away outside the country when the DSS were looking for him for almost 4 weeks. Nothing happened. It's inclusive in the 3 months ultimatum they gave.
You know why I asked this question? When you begin to allege that, you know, banks are not apolitical, as we've always thought, we thought, okay, yes, we know that bank owners, or would I say bank owners...
No, but there is a governor that said he got 500 million naira new notes in the banks last week. Yes. So if they think it is politicians they're doing this to, it is not the politicians they're doing it to. It is the masses that are suffering.
So that's
and that is why we're speaking out.
That's why I'm asking you that. Are you sure that there are people who are not deliberately? Because for a governor...
And I've told you the people now in the light of Sabi that had people they wanted to put in that office.
Are you saying...
I am telling you, he has assumed so much powers and he thinks if he doesn't put anybody there, he will go to prison. He has made a lot of money. What are you saying, Mo?
But the buck stops at the president's table. This is tantamount to passing the buck. The president is the one that was elected. He's the one that should take that decision. So can anybody else, wouldn't it be tantamount to passing the buck if we say another individual?
Coming up with it. Let me tell you, he's coming up. He didn't know it was going to be this bad.
Who, the president?
Yes, and he was told by the governors that it is bad and this is what is happening. And he's seen it, of course he's seen it. Because unless they don't show him clips of people queuing in ATMs, Buhari would not allow anything like that to happen to Nigerians. Why do you think he has refused to remove subsidy? We all thought by 2015 subsidy would be out, but he saw that if he removes subsidy, masses will suffer. He refused to remove subsidy. So, why wouldn't he then allow this to happen? This is worse than removing subsidy.
Well, as we wind down on this one, I mean, do you think that your party can recover from what people think now? Because
we will win these elections, Chamberlain. Don't even go close to that. We are the majority. We have passed. I will tell you this: with all the gimmicks and whatever thing they were doing. We won the elections in 2015, won the elections in 2019. We will still win in 2023. APC is a very strong party. We are the majority in this country.
You say that one individual, but some people will say that it is not possible for only one individual, that perhaps there are others within your party who still support. Because if you say that these are the fallouts of the primaries of your party, perhaps there's still those who are disgruntled as a result of what has happened with the primaries.
We have all come together. Maope, I proudly, and I'm still proud of it, I've never regretted it, I supported the vice president. I wanted him to be the president. But I am also proud today, because it's still my party, of campaigning for Ashwaji, because I know he can deliver.
All right, we'll see how that plays out. We'll also get to hear from the PDP in just a moment. Well, Awal Hassan is the convener, North-South Progressive Alliance. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
We're back in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to the 2023 verdict, and as you've seen the sunrise daily now, verdict 2023. Well, we've got Mr. Daniel Boala, who is a spokesperson of Atiku Okowa presidential campaign team. He joins us virtually. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, about this breakback within the APC, they thought it was supposed to be within the APC, but now several narratives about PDP saying they are the ones that are being accused. Does the PDP still hold that view, probably in the light of what we just heard the member of the APC say a moment ago?
Well, Chamberlain, thank you for having me on. Good morning to Nigerians. They used to, what they have, we don't have, first of all, for the records, we don't have a dog in their fight, this blame game. But we know the condition to which they are placed under. It used to be pantophobia, but now it is anthropophobia. It is a fear of people and society, the fear of the backlash that voters are going to give them. Because the blame game started when they blamed the opposition, they blamed Russia and Ukraine fight, they blamed the weather, they blamed America, they blamed themselves. When there was nobody to blame, they blamed the president. And they say the president is going to be the cause of their defeat. But in actual fact, it is a policy issue. It is bad governance. These sufferings of the Nigerian people is the climax of the dangerous policies of APC. And you can see inconsistency in their various interventions. For example, my brother Alwan today is telling you it is Sabi Utunde that is responsible for their problems. But if you just oppose that with what El-Rufai said, El-Rufai was talking and El-Rufai said it is an elder, because he was reacting and he says the governors in the north are the elders and that they fear nobody. Then yesterday, one of their supporters now pointed at Emefiele, and he said Emefiele ran for the primaries. They are doing catch and shoot, and the reason is just simple. You see, whatever you do, there is a time for everything, seed time and harvest. when they introduce these bad policies, and you know, this their emergency care, you see all of them coming and say, yesterday the guy, the supporter that came yesterday, he said that himself was campaigning in his zone and that there was no fuel. He had to buy a fuel for 1,000 naira. You see Alwan today talk about suffering. Rufai talking about suffering in their domain. That emergency care is what is amusing me. They do not know that in this country we have had 5 months of fuel queue, to which none of them said anything about. In fact, they were even praising their government. We have 8 to 9 months of students staying at home. We have banditry in a proportion that we have over 2-point-something billion as at the year that passed. You know, bandits collected from innocent Nigerians. We have multiple kidnapping and shooting. In fact, prison breaks or prison attack, to the point where people even said they were going to overthrow the government of the Federation. Rufai talked about bandits surrounding Kaduna, and he said they feared that they were going to take over the government. All of these things did not express, demonstrate, activate their concern for the Nigerian people. Suddenly, because election is at the door and there is a palpable fear that there is going to be a voter backlash, they decided that they were going to turn the heat at the president. And if you remember Maokwe and Chamberlain, I said it when their campaign started, that their entire manifesto is war against Buhari. But now I have been proved right, because everybody is seeing that they have just graduated from pantophobia to anthropophobia. Now, let me address something, Mr. Chamberlain, in reaction to what Rufai said. It is amusing to me, because he's somebody I respect so dearly, and there was a time we were exchanging banters on Twitter, and I told him he's one of the finest we have in the North. But you see, what is baffling me is this. On the 5th of May, 2019, Governor El Rufai was quoted to have said that he was going to introduce a strategy and policy that will end godfatherism in Lagos. Who was he referring to? Well, Jando is going to apply that policy. On the 11th to 13th of May, Rufai's aide was reacting on behalf of his boss, and Rufai and the young man said, Rufai said, I can never be a vice presidential candidate or vice president to any drug baron. Who was he referring to? Now, but look at the palpable fear and sudden reaction from a Rufai that is throwing the entire northern Nigeria. In fact, he assumed the role of Sir Amadou Bello when he said that they have vowed, they have promised Asiwaju presidency. And when he was asked about elders, he said they are the elders are overrating themselves, and that they were never voted. Some of them can't even win councillorship, as if the determination of an elder is when you run for office. Look at Nigeria.
Mr. Bola, if I may come in, because you've been speaking for a while. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So there are a few issues which you have raised. You talked about the bad policies of the APC. But on this particular issue, this currency swap or currency redesign, your candidate as former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has spoken up, and he's talked about how the CBN governor should not submit to blackmail. He shouldn't succumb to blackmail. So it would seem that on this particular policy, your party seems to be happy about it.
No. Let me first start by stating the obvious. This policy is the climax of the various policies of APC. If there was good governance, if there was no suffering, if APC lived to the creed of their promise, there would have been no need for this policy in the first place. Second of all, we have established that these people are only reacting, not because they care for the masses, because the evidence showed the very opposite, but that allegedly some of them have stashed money. In fact, you have had a Rufai who said one of his friends got 500 million. Who was he talking about? He's an APC governor. So these same people are the ones frustrating the distribution of this Naira to the Nigerian people through the payment platforms. Assuming that these people are not doing that to frustrate Buhari, there would have not been any effect whatsoever by the masses. The good thing for the Nigerian people is that they are acutely aware that it is the same APC fighting Buhari that are behind the holding of the new money, the back-end arrangement with bankers, and then the collection, which now is evidenced by what Rufai by himself said, that the governor had 500 million. So the position of Atiku Abubakar is that whatever it will take to deliver on good governance and free and fair elections should be implemented. But he expressed concern very well and vividly and clearly that the distribution of this Naira to the common people of Nigeria should never be frustrated. Now what El-Rufai has said proved my candidate right, because now there is evidence to show that there are people who are frustrating the distribution or the equitable distribution of this money to the Nigerian people. There is no contradiction.
Mr. Bwala, just to be clear, are you saying that in spite of your presidential candidate's position on the February 10 deadline, that it should not be extended, contrary to the clamor, are you saying that in spite of that, your party is not in support of the currency redesign and swap?
Our party is in support of free and fair election that will be devoid of manipulation and vote buying. Our party is in support of Nigerian people having access to their own money in the banks. Our party is in support of policies that deliver on good governance to the Nigerian people, to which APC does not have at the moment. Our party is also in support of this fact that the Nigerian people have suffered enough. And it's about
Mr. Bwala, Mr. Bwala,
their bitterness.
Mr. Bwala, it's a clear enough question. It's a clear enough question. Your presidential candidate has taken a position, do not extend the deadline, but you have quoted it here as one of the bad policies. It seems to be a contradiction. So what exactly is your party's position? Is your party's position, does it contradict your presidential candidate's statement on the currency redesign?
The statement of my presidential candidate is in no way taking a position as to whether the policy is good or bad. Everybody knows APC has bad policies, and APC's policies brings suffering to the Nigerian people. But let me give you a good example. The president even said that even if, when the governors visited him, that even if this extension were to be made for 1 more year, that people will still frustrate the access by the Nigerian people to the Naira. And he recounted how that information was given 3 months ago. Then he now undertook, because nobody receives intelligence more than the president in the country. And he said there is evidence to show that people are frustrating. So it is not the policy that is the problem. The problem is people frustrating it so that there will be a large extension for them to use the old Naira that they stash in safe houses to deliver on vote buying. There is no contradiction. And what the president said is supported by evidence, in the sense that DSS, ICPC, and the police have arrested, and you have seen the video all over, people who are stashing up the money in their homes, bankers who are giving to certain individuals, and now the governor of APC saying another governor of his has secured 500 million. For God's sake, that 500 million he secured, where is he taking it to? It's a big question that El-Rufai ought to have answered. Where is he taking it to? And I bet
I ask you for clarification. Mr. Bwala, just a second.
He's a PDP governor.
I ask you for clarification for good reason, because a lot of people are reading meanings into the disposition of your candidate. And just to quote, our last guest who suggested that banks are now apolitical, that certain banks are having access to the funds, although you are now saying that it's an APC governor that is getting 500 million Naira of the new currency notes, contrary to what our last guest has said. But does this support the views expressed in some quarters that the conspiracy theory from the Villa is now to support your candidate to win the election?
Let me tell you, like I said from the beginning, and let me say it clearly. When I talked about anthropophobia is the fear of the people. Now, blame fixing. You don't have to have a reason to fix a blame. Once you are triggered by this anxiety, anything is a blame. Now, they are saying from the Villa, but none of them has been able to furnish evidence. Look at somebody even calling Sabiu as somebody controlling the president. These people fell short of calling the president a moron. There is nothing they have not talked about the president. My head, my shoulder, my feet, my toe, my head. my shoulder. They were touching every part of the president. No, it is not the president. He means well for Nigeria. Somebody in the bill are manipulating him. Somebody in that sort of manipulation. Somebody outside. So who else do you think they will say that the policy will benefit since they try to manipulate the president and they can't succeed? Obviously, it has to be the person that is on clear path to win it. It's a common logic. But again, you asked me the question that if they have evidence, they ought to have furnished. And I like Alwan, in comparison to the rest of them. At least he's a conspiracy theorist. He has been able to point at somebody and has not substantiated evidence. But the rest cannot point at anybody. And there is nothing as confusing and as throwing something in the air and leaving conjecture. Like, let me tell you, even the media, one of their spokesperson at one time blamed the entire Nigerian media as working for PDP. So to that, what can you say? Is channel working for PDP? My sister, what is happening to them, let me tell you, it is captured in the famous dictum or colloquialism in Yoruba, kokorotunje efo inwe foluwa. Kokorotunje efo inwe foluwa. The insect that is killing the leaf is in the leaf. And so if they don't know, anything else can be a good excuse to give. There is one good news to everybody in Nigeria. The Nigerian people are fed up with APC. There is nobody in his sane mind that will vote APC anywhere in Nigeria.
Much for your time and thoughts, particularly on this issue, and we hope that more clarifications will come in the coming days ahead of the election. You're watching Sunrise Daily. There is more after this time out. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the 2023 verdict, and this time we're focusing on INEC. And you do know that, well, first of all, let me introduce our guest here today. Well, you may have seen on that welcoming slide, Victor Aluko, the Director of Voter Education and Publicity for INEC. But he's here with Dr. Lawrence Bayode, who is a Deputy Director for ICT in INEC, and that's because there has to be a demonstration of BVAS. Yeah. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having us.
So, not everybody could watch or attend that mock accreditation that transpired. But of course, there will be several questions which must apologize up front. We can't even entertain a quarter or a fraction of those questions because there will be a lot of them. This is all important because that is why several people went to register, hoping that their votes will count. So, let me yield the floor to you. So go ahead and tell us, gentlemen, how did the mock exercise go? Let me start with you, Mr. Luke.
Yeah, the exercise was very successful nationwide. You agree with me that we were able to use BVAS in Anambra State, in Ekiti, in Osun States, and FCT. Now, there are 36 states in this country. And we also have used BVAS in a few constituencies. There are 109 senatorial districts, 360 federal constituencies. It's a huge country. And so we had to test the BVAS machine in all the terrains, various terrains across the country, in all the senatorial districts. And that was what we did. And it afforded us the opportunity to test the efficiency and the efficacy of the machines, and also for the people themselves to relate with the BVAS machine. Many people were yet to see the machine. Many people have seen them on channels and other TV stations. So those who came to the units were able to touch them and see them. And they appreciated the way the BVAS machines work, because they did what they were supposed to do, accredit voters efficiently.
Especially those who were not registering for the first time. I mean, if they had their PVC before now, they certainly wouldn't have come across the BVAS. But if they registered only recently, the chances are very high that they were registered with this device. Yes. But I want to ask, by what criteria did you reach the conclusion that the mock accreditation and voting was a successful exercise?
The criteria we used was the reports we got from the states. We had 436 PUs, that's polling units where we tested the equipment. And the reports where the test was successful. We didn't really have issues. We did not expect any issues anyway. The BVAS were configured for that exercise, and our personnel were trained. It was a mock exercise, and we did not expect any crowd. On election day, we will be coping with the huge population of voters that will turn up. But that day was just for us to experiment. And those who came were able to attend to them. And what we found out was that the BVAS could work in a very fast way. We accredited people within 30 seconds, although we heard that in some places it took like 2 minutes. And during our training sessions with our presiding officers, we'll be emphasizing on the issue of speed. Because on election day, we will need speed. Okay.
I'm very interested. I mean, just before we go, he was saying something to do. I want to confirm, was it accreditation and voting, or just accreditation?
Well, we're just trying to do a mock exercise. There were no ballot papers, as it were. Okay. You know, even though we tried to make it the voter, we're able to accredit the voter, and we're able to mimic a form of voting. But so there were no ballot papers. There were no result sheets.
Okay.
All right. But so the BVAS machines were on ground live.
Okay. Right. So, for instance, I think Ayo has finally collected his PVC in Lagos. He tried a long time, and I think he succeeded.
Oh, that's
Buki, you have to tell us if you collected way before now. So for the lady and the gentleman who have their PVCs, what should they expect upon getting to vote on election day, Dr. Baide?
Thank you so much, Chamberlain. On election day, these two persons that you just mentioned must go to their polling units with those PVCs. Because even after collecting the PVC, if you leave the PVC at home and you just walk to the polling station, because of the news that has been flying around before now, that with your last 5 digits of your VIN on the PVC, that you can just walk to the polling station and cast your vote. That is not true. You need to go to the polling station with your PVC.
So no PVC, no voting?
No voting. No PVC.
What about those who say, but wait a minute, if they're going to be taking my biometrics, if I forget my PVC at home and I go there and say, look, I've registered, but I forgot it at home, but test my biometrics and you see that my details will come up.
Yeah, what happens? The law is clear. In section 47, subsection 1 and 2, is for you to, of the electoral 2022, for you to be allowed to vote, you must come with your PVC.
So that's out of the way?
Yes.
So,
so you come with your PVC, and this machine, the APO3 confirmed that PVC belonged to that polling station where you have reported.
This is the famous BVAS.
Yeah, this is the BVAS, and this is going to be deployed to all the polling stations on the election day. This is the machine that will be used to do the accreditation, that is authenticating the fingerprint or the facial of the voter. On this machine, we already have the voters, all the voters for that poll unit are already downloaded to this machine. So unlike the smart card reader, this machine is not reading information from the smart card reader, because this machine already has information of all voters downloaded to it. It just brings up the information of that voter from within the system.
Over that, in that polling
unit, yes.
So don't cross from one.
No.
You won't be allowed.
It's going to be it's polling unit specific. That is to say, each beavers will be configured and deployed to a polling
no
unit.
politician should think about snatching one.
No. If you snatch it and
gone
take
are
it
those
today,
days.
No, it won't work. And where and the threshold we are using for this election is 1,250 at threshold. Where we have more than 1,250, we deploy more machines to
the polling unit.
So if I'm a voter and I approach the place, am I supposed to ask them, can I see how many people you have on this beavers machine? What can I ask and what can't I request about?
Yeah, it is a duty of the presiding officer to show everyone that will be available before the commencement of vote, telling them that this smart card reader at the commencement of vote, it's zero. We can see, I'm trying to bring up the machine. Sorry, let me just turn it to myself.
And that is to ensure that no preloaded data.
This accredited voters at the commencement of vote must be zero. It must be zero.
So the polling unit officer has a duty
to show people at the just like you are showing them the ballot box, that the ballot box is empty at the commencement of vote. You should also show them this, that it is zero at the commencement of vote. For this example, these beavers have been configured to this particular polling unit, and the total register for this particular polling unit now, this demo polling unit, is 9.
To the studio, configured to the studio.
Yeah, for this studio. So we have 9. So you have 9 voters already.
So our vote in the studio will count, guys.
Yes. So these are all the you will see the pictures of all the voters in this polling unit now.
Okay.
So we have 9. Then anybody who is interested can also see whether the total number of registered voters on this machine is in tandem with the one on the hard copy of the voter register.
So what we know is it must not exceed 1,250.
Yes, for each machine. That is for each. That's what INEC is doing, so that we will not have many persons in front of the beaver. If, for example, if polling unit A you have more than 1,250, then we deploy 2 machines to that polling unit. And we are not going to be deploying that total number of machines on the 2 machines. For example, downloading 1,050 here and downloading 250 on the other machine. We are going to be splitting these voters so that when you vote here, you will not be able to go there to the other machine to vote.
To be accredited.
So, yes, to be accredited. So if your name does not appear on this machine, then your name will appear on the other machine. For example, maybe this machine is just taking people with surname A to B, and for the second one, it takes C to Z.
So, as it is right now, on that particular day, the question is a big question, over voting.
There is nothing on the screen right now. I'm sure you might want to take a look at that. Let's quickly take a quick break, and we'll be back shortly.
Okay. Welcome back to the 2023 verdict, and we're taking a look at the BVAS machine this morning at this time, and Dr. Biden will tell us about the question of overvoting. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Chamberlain. With this machine, the Commission has been able to eradicate what we refer to as overvoting. And with the BVAS machine, with what we are going to be doing for the general election, there cannot be anything like overvoting. The machine accredits the number of those that will be allowed to vote. So if there's anything called overvoting, this machine will bring that to the fore on election day.
All right, let's quickly dash to the 2023 verdict studio in Lagos. I mean, he just got his PVC, and Buki also. I expect that both of them, may expect a scenario on election day. Can you go ahead, please?
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. I mean, it's only interesting that you are even raising the idea that I got my PVC. I'm hoping I'll be able to vote. But now that I hear that there is a Channels Television constituency, I don't know. But let me ask you, Mr. Aluko. Now, the conversation around young people voting, 3 million students that are likely to be disenfranchised, is something very, very concerning, don't you think? Any way out, any wiggle way for these potentially likely not to vote young people to be included in the process? What are the chances? What are any possibility of any bend somehow?
Well, thank you. The preparations we're making, preparations are in tandem with the provisions of our laws. Now, whether you're young, whether you are old, no matter your age, as long as you're a voter and you have your PVC, you can vote in the polling unit where your name is listed on the voters register. So if you are a student, you registered in Abeokuta, and you are in school in Akure during the election, I'm sorry, unless you go back to your home or the place where you registered, you'll not be able to vote. We don't have what we call absentee voting, and we do not have what we call early voting, where people can mail in their ballots like they do in the US. We have not gotten to that stage. The stage we are is that you vote where your name is listed. That is the area you registered, and your name is listed on the voters register, because that is where your details are, that is where your particulars are, and that's where you will relate with the BVAS machine, and then you vote there. And so anyone, no matter your age, if you want to vote, you just have to keep to that regulation. Okay. That's the current regulation we're using, and we want people to abide with those regulations.
Well, it's a catch-22 kind of.
Travel back. Anyone who is in school now and registered somewhere else and will not be able to travel back, we are sorry about that.
Okay.
It's not really our fault.
All right. Well, let me ask Dr. Bade very quickly. You were trying to show us how the BVAS works, but I have to go there with my voter card. So what's the relationship between my voter card being with me on election day and the BVAS?
Yeah, it's just the law. It's just the law that you have to come with your PVC for you to be allowed to vote. As we speak, that is the law. In the future, you may not need to come with your PVC. But as it is now, you have to come with your PVC for you to be allowed to vote.
So there is no direct interface between my voter card and the BVAS, which is crucial to the election.
Like I've just said, the BVAS, your information is already downloaded onto the BVAS. But the law says you have to come with your PVC. And the card, as we speak, is used to verify you by the APO3, who is a queue controller, to ascertain whether you are for that particular polling unit or not. Your first point of call when you get to the polling unit is to come in contact with the APO3, who Assistant Presiding Officer 3, who is a queue controller. And what this person does is to check your PVC, look at the picture on the PVC, and see whether it is you. Check the limb, which is the PU code, to see whether you are in the right place. If you are not in the right place, the APO3 directs you to your right polling station. But as we speak, there is no, the beavers is not reading any information, just like when we're using the smart carrier that reads information from the chip embedded inside the PVC. The beavers does not read any information from the PVC. What the APO3 see is just to check if the picture of the person that is on the PVC is you, and you are now allowed to stay on the queue for you to go and meet the APO2, sorry, APO1, who uses the beavers to authenticate you using your fingerprint or your facial.
Still on the beavers, I'm coming to you now, Mr. Aluko. You said earlier that the exercise, the mock accreditation exercise, was successful, but success may be relative. I wonder if you've read the report by the Center for Democracy and Development on its assessment. There was late arrival of INEC officials in some parts of the country, Enugu and Taraba to be precise. And in the case of the beavers, the report was that there were isolated glitches where it couldn't authenticate both fingerprint and facials, particularly for elderly people. What's INEC's position on this, and what's it doing to address it before February the 25th?
Well, if there were instances of people, our officials not opening the polling units at the right time, that they arrived with some of the few PUs we used, not in good time. Well, we are grateful for all those reports. If there are also reports of some elderly persons who could not be either verified or authenticated by the BBC, all this will be looked into. After all, the mock exercise was to enable us to test the efficiency and the efficacy of the beavers. So if there were those incidents, our technical people will look into them and will form a part of our preparations for election day. So we are grateful for whatever observations observers, the media made on the field. All those observations will help us.
All right, gentlemen, we have to thank you both for coming on, but don't worry, we will focus a lot more on this program on the beavers and get a lot of your questions, if not all of them, a lot of your questions answered by INEC themselves. But we have to thank them for coming on this morning. Dr. Lawrence Bide is Deputy Director ICT in INEC, as well as Mr. Victor Aluko, who is the Director of Voter Education and Publicity for INEC. Well, just some breaking news coming through now. Yeah, you want to... Okay, just a minute. We have some news just coming in. At the moment, Kaduna, Kogi, Zamfara states have dragged the federal government to court over the Naira redesign policy. Some breaking news coming through. Kaduna, Kogi, Zamfara states have taken the federal government to court over the Naira redesign policy. We will bring you more on that matter as we get there. But that is the show today.
See how 3 hours flew by quickly. We still couldn't take all of the feedback as we promised.
Yeah.
But he's made a promise, and I know that we will deliver.
Yeah,
because this program is about you, and your feedback is something very important to us.
Absolutely. So we do thank you very much indeed for watching the 2023 verdict. That is studios. So it runs from 7 to 10 a.m. weekdays here at Channels Television. We do thank you immensely for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm Chamberlain. So goodbye.
I'm Alpelgu Yusuf.
Yes, Verdict 2023 will be back tomorrow. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
And I am Akine. Have a wonderful day.